Real people, real celebrities, real talk.
Join the Breakfast Club.
Blast off in your
Weekday morning, 6 to 10.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are the Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
My man.
Our financial advisor. Your financial advisor, Dr. Boyce Watkins. Good morning, sir.
What's happening?
How's everything?
What's good, Dr. Boyce?
Oh, everything's good, man. I'm having a great time in New York. You know, I went to see Straight Outta Compton this week.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
You did $56 million this weekend.
Man, you know, that movie shows really the power of the black dollar when it gets focused. You know, it was first of all, it was a great movie. I mean, I think Gary Gray did a great job. Ice Cube, his son, I mean, he's a spitting image of this dude.
Right.
So I literally feel like I was watching Ice Cube again because I followed NWA really closely. Like, I mean, all the beefs and everything, like a lot of people did. And what I loved about the movie was not just that it really told the story in a compelling way, but it also had these interesting lessons about just money and business and contracts and the importance of understanding the business of your business.
Right.
You know, and if you look 25 years ahead, you look at the guys who succeeded and survived versus the ones who kind of blew their opportunities. The difference was business, right? Ice Cube was the one who wouldn't sign their contract and take the $75K. Dre made some big moves, and now he's doing really well. But then you look at, you know, cats like Suge Knight and some others that really, I feel, Suge and Eazy kind of had, they were at the center of the hip-hop universe at one point.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they single-handedly controlled one of the fastest-growing genres of music in history, and you saw that kind of sloppy business practices ended up costing them.
Well, Dre learned by a lot of trial and error because he initially got raped.
Yeah,
Yes.
He initially wanted to get that check, so he signed to get that fast money without thinking long term. But fortunately for him, he had the talent and the product that people needed and managed to pull it together later.
Even with the death row situation, I found it interesting because Dre just didn't want to be a part of it because he felt like it was just a negative situation. So he walked away with nothing. Like,
He had no control.
He said, "Keep everything.
Keep everything you got. I'm going to go start my own thing."
That was a wise decision, number one, because you can't let money disrupt your peace of mind.
Right.
And the death row situation was just so volatile, so crazy. I mean, it literally took people's lives.
Right, yeah.
You know, so I think that him walking away was a great move, no matter how much money it cost him. And then also what's interesting to me is that Dre is a builder, right? He's not a performer. He's not just a performer. He's a builder that said, okay, I'm going to go create Aftermath. You know, even though I'm walking away from all of this, I'm just going to start from scratch and build something on my own.
That shows you money is not everything.
Yes.
And sometimes you have to just say, forget it. And you know, people fight all the time, like with divorces and all of that. They fight over money so much. Sometimes you can just say, okay, you know what? I'm going to go start my whole own situation. You just keep that, whatever.
Right.
Save you a lot of headaches.
Yeah, I mean, it was just smart. And to me, the movie was also just about choices. You just see guys that didn't make the best choices. And then you have more level-headed guys, obviously Cube and Dre, but then you even have guys who were part of that era who could have gotten sucked into things like Diddy, Snoop. And what I really sensed from these guys was a kind of a level-headedness that says, I'm looking above and beyond the situation that's around me right now. I'm trying to grow older and have kids and grandkids. And what I love about the movie as well is that, you know, Cube put his son in the movie, and it really shows kind of what generational wealth can do. He overcame, you know, the struggles of Compton, and now he's in a position where his grandchildren's grandchildren are going to be taken care of.
You're damn right.
You know, his kids will never have a boss, or unless they want one. They'll never have to worry about student loans. If they get married, they'll have plenty of money. They'll have down payments on their first homes. I mean, just things that wouldn't have occurred if Cube had been financially irresponsible.
Well, Cube did make his son audition, though. He didn't just hand him the role.
Yeah, he didn't
made
just
audition.
have it,
Yes.
Now, what do you think about, you know, they always, like the movie made $56 million, and they say, oh, it exceeded expectations. And I always say, I feel they say that because they don't expect us to do. They don't expect black people to support nothing. They don't expect us to support our own. What do you think about that?
Well, you know, and we talk about this a lot in the class I teach. This is the Black Wealth Boot Camp. And one of the things that we talk about is that there are so much unexplored opportunity in the black community. Hollywood is brilliant in one way in the fact that they make these amazing products, but they're so ignorant in another way. They miss out on so many great opportunities. I mean, anybody in their right mind, anybody with any an ounce of sense knew this movie was going to be huge.
Absolutely.
There was no record that it broke that surprised me. But you got people in Hollywood that are saying, oh, well, how did this happen? Where did this come from? They did the same thing when Tyler Perry made all that money, right? But, you know, the thing about it is, and really my dream, my vision, like Dr. King had a dream, I got a dream. My dream is that maybe in 50 years, when a movie like this comes out that big, you'll have black-owned everything top to bottom. You won't have to partner with a Universal to get your distribution. You can put it out on your own and keep all the money.
I mean, it'd be great. I mean, it'd be great if we had our own movie theaters and we could watch it in our own movie theaters. Yeah, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great dream.
They got Magic Johnson theaters.
That's a start.
And you know what else too? I love they had a great, very organic marketing campaign.
Yep.
With the straight outta, and then you got to put your own picture and where you were from or whatever you
dope.
wanted to put. That was one of the
Brilliant.
best marketing campaigns that I've seen in a minute, and that didn't cost anything.
No,
That was viral.
It was so beautiful. I mean, when I started seeing those memes that said straight out or whatever, I said, okay, they've got a bomb right here. This is going to be amazing because people were internalizing the straight out of Compton message, you know, and it was already a great story. But I think F. Gary Gray executed the story extremely well. The marketing was absolutely brilliant. It's a blueprint. I mean, you're going to see more movies like this in the future because people are now seeing, oh my God, these things can make money.
And you know what else too, man? I like seeing other stories, black stories on the screen other than slave movies and stuff like The Help and The Butler. This is African American history, whether you want to look at it like that or not. It is.
No, it is.
It absolutely
It's
is.
our culture. It absolutely positively is.
It is one dimension of black history, right? As a person who was a huge fan of NWA, to this day, Ice Cube's my favorite rapper. I mean, a lot of people sleep on the great music he's made in the last 10 years, but the man is brilliant if you analyze his lyrical content. But you can't, as a 40-something-year-old man, look at what NWA brought to hip-hop and feel like that was 100% good. NWA, to some extent, was a reflection of what was going on in South Central. South Central was ground zero for the CIA's war on black people with drugs and guns and all that other stuff. So they were a reflection of that. But there's a difference between reflecting on what you see and glorifying it, right? They glorified a lot of things that were just not healthy. And honestly, I would have preferred to see a group like, say, X-Clan blow up just as much. Because remember, X-Clan had a very strong message, intelligent message, a black message. And so NWA, as brilliant as they were, you have to reflect on this in a way that is healthy and productive. You can't just sort of glamorize them as if they're sort of the template of what a rapper should be. I think that even if they could do it over again, they would have done it different.
Yeah, and they touched on that in the movie as well during a press conference when they were asked about the content of their music. And they did say, look, this is what, I don't live in the suburbs. When I go outside, you know, this is what I see. This is what's in front of me. I'm not where you are.
But you know, NWA too had a lot of stuff that was socially conscious you may not even recognize. Like they did a song called Just Don't Bite It. Now you may think that's
Shut
a
up.
very negative song.
That's
a very
Okay,
good message.
okay.
Don't matter.
That's a
Just
very-
don't bite it.
Yeah, that's a good message to females.
that's
Just
not-
don't bite it.
Shut up, man. I hate these guys. Now let's talk about money a little bit. How can we make some more money?
Now I can tell. 'cause
Don't put up. Don't.
One of our interns, hold on. no.
okay.
One of our interns actually had a question that she wanted me to ask. And a lot of young, fresh out of college kids ask me stuff like this all the time. What advice would you give to a recent college graduate struggling to pay their bills, their school loans, all while trying to find a job?
Well, you know, the first thing I would do is think about the long-term plan. You know, you don't want to sort of let what's happening around you right now define everything you're going to be and everything that's going to happen in the long term. Because a lot of times we make short-term decisions with long-term implications because of what we're looking at right then. I think that your peace of mind, your happiness, your well-being is more important than the amount of money you make. So I would figure out what it is, who it is you are, and what it is you want to do, and then figure out how to build a business model around that. Almost everything that you do has a business model. There's a way to make money. And so, you know, when I was coming out of college, I had debt. I didn't have a lot of income, but there were certain jobs I just didn't want to do. You know, and eventually I knew I didn't even want to work for somebody. I'd rather be broke than working for other people. And so I think figuring those things out, figuring out who you are, and then sort of setting up a plan at that point can work. I think ownership is extremely important. My argument is that every black person in America should own something. And you can own something, right? You don't have to run a business to own a business. So if you want to own something, go to a website and buy a share of stock. In fact, if you have a child, a brother emailed me the other day and said, my daughter is 18 months old. How soon should I start preparing her for ownership and all sorts? I said, well, she's 18 months old. You're 18 months too late. Get started now. Buy her, you know, for example, Christmas time. If you get tempted to buy your child a pair of sneakers, some Jordans or something, maybe consider buying them a share of Nike stock instead. Because what it does is it opens the floodgates of conversation and curiosity about what it means to actually own something. They'll start following the stock. And next thing you know, you may have created something that even you can't see at that point. Right.
Now, we talked about this last time. I still don't understand the logic. Why would you rather be broke than work for somebody? Like, I don't think that's a good message to give to kids.
No, I wouldn't say that you want to be sloppy and self-destructive with it. But I think that racism can tear away at your soul so badly. At least it did with me. That I just, not only did I decide that I would rather be broke than work for certain kinds of people, but I would almost rather be dead than to be sort of crushed.
Christ.
I know it sounds crazy, but there's something about racism that just I mean, when you go to work every day and you dream about jumping across the desk and punching somebody in the face, and I think the funny thing is, it sounds crazy for me to say it, but I know a lot of people who feel that way. You know, that's not normal. It's not normal that we live in a country where the average American spends more time away from their family and at work than they do with their actual spouse and children. Right. That's not normal. So, you know, I wouldn't say that you should rather be, say, homeless or whatever, but there are alternatives. There are other ways to survive other than just signing on for corporate slavery. You don't have to do that. But for many of us, that's the only option that we're presented with as children. So we think that's all we can do.
What if it's a black-owned corporation and you got to hire other black people? Are you going to tell them that?
Well, you got some. I mean, I think black-owned businesses can do better when their mind is in the right place. But you have some black folks that will exploit you and still harm you like anybody else.
I think everybody will exploit you. I think most people will try to get, you know, as much out of you as possible for paying
for as little
nothing.
as
I
possible.
think that's just everybody's characters, because most people just want to make money.
And everybody can't be a boss.
I
we
agree
need
with
work.
that.
Well, I think he was talking about his own personal.
Everybody can't be a boss of everything. But you can have options, right? To me, being a boss doesn't mean that you are the head honcho, the alpha male. You're the one running everything all the time. It means you have options. You have freedom. That's what freedom is, right? We think of slavery as something where you're not being paid, and it's not true. You can still be paid and still be a slave. The question is, are you getting up and doing this task every day on your own free will, or are you doing it because somebody's forcing you to do it? If you feel forced, then you are stuck in slavery. So to me, you can still work for someone and be free. But if I'm working for you because I want to be here and I have other places I can be, like, oh, you guys have options, right? So you're not enslaved, even though you do work for other people technically.
But you know, you say that, but most people put themselves in that predicament, in that situation. You're saying forced to work. You know, some people might have had a child and have to work, or some people might have a school loan and have to work. You put yourself in that predicament where you have to work. You know, I honestly feel like some people work because they enjoy it, or they work because they can't be boss. I know a lot of people that can't be boss, that can't run their own company, that don't have the smarts to run their own company, and you don't want them running their own company.
Right, and I don't think everybody should run their own company. It's funny, I was talking about this yesterday with this great filmmaker by the name of Dorian Chandler, and I was explaining to her that when it comes to being a boss of something, there are a lot of people who are bosses that don't actually have to run anything.
Right.
In fact, Dr. Claude Anderson, who wrote the book Powernomics, actually explained something that he said some of his Jewish friends would do this. He said they believe that not all of them, of course, but his friend said, look, if you want to own 100% of a business and you don't want to do any work or any heavy work, then don't own 100% of one business. Own 10% of 10 businesses. Because when you're a minority partner, you're not the one that has to get up in the middle of the night to go fix the plumbing in the building or whatever. You can just put your money there and have your money work for you. And that's the thing. I think that when you talk about building wealth, the first thing that has to happen is we have to all reframe our thinking of just what money is. There's small-minded thinking when it comes to money and big-minded thinking. A small-minded thinker says something like this: I just signed to the NBA. I'm making $8 million a year. Now instead of buying one $50,000 car, I can buy 7. Right? That's small-minded thinking, right? But we see it all the time. A large-minded thinker says, I have enough money where I could build a school and educate thousands of kids and still make a profit. I could start a business and employ hundreds of people. I could set up situations where my children, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren will never have to work. So every time I see an athlete go broke, like when I read about the story about Vin Baker, the guy that's working at Starbucks,
right.
I felt
Chipotle.
Say it again.
No, Starbucks.
No, Starbucks.
Okay, I thought it was Chipotle.
Yeah, I felt real bad for the brother because I said, this is so sad, because he doesn't even realize the scope of the damage that has been done, because you didn't just ruin your life. You ruined the lives of your children, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren. This is generational wealth. This is the kind of money, $100 million can be turned into billions if it's invested properly.
That's why I didn't feel sorry for him. I'm like, you dumbass. But I mean, I guess somebody should have been there to school him.
Because he might not have known.
Yeah, right.
See, the problem is you don't know. It's education. You know, if your parents, like you said, is not teaching you this, then you don't know. You know, and that's the problem with our community.
Some people don't know what to invest in either.
They don't know what to invest in. They don't know how to keep money. They don't know how to save.
Some bad investments.
That's a lot. You have to work hard to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, that's a lot.
$100 million.
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Now, let me ask you this. This is the age-old question of buying versus renting. They're saying now in the economy, and I've been doing a lot of research on this, for a lot of people, they feel like it's really expensive to save up that money for a down payment. It's harder and harder to get those mortgages. People's rents are so high right now, it's been even harder for them to even pull it together. So is there ever a good reason you think to rent over buying, or should we be always aiming to buy?
I don't think you have to always. It's funny. Almost every question in finance doesn't have a yes or no answer. It's always, it depends, right? I would say that a New Yorker's perception of renting, buying, or anything is different from the rest of the country.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, almost anywhere else you live, except maybe Silicon Valley or something like that, is going to have substantially lower prices to buy or to rent, all that other stuff. But I can say personally that I don't think buying is always the best choice, because if you buy something and you own something, you have to take care of that thing. Right. You have a house, you got to cut the grass, you got a condo, you got to deal with condo fees, or if you decide to move, you got to sell it. Right. So a lot of people actually buy for at least a couple reasons. One, you just want to own something. You want something that's going to go up in value. Number two, you get the tax write-off. Well, there are plenty of things that I was able to own over time where I get those benefits without having to worry about the troubles of dealing with real estate. So I think that the rent or buy decision, it depends on what's going to make you happiest, number one. Number two, whether or not you have other alternatives that are just as good. For example, I found investments that, could pay me 20, 30, 40, 50% a year, whereas, real estate might not do that for me. You see, so I think the rent or buy decision really depends on where you're at, who you are. If you have a family and you want to be there for a while, I think maybe buying could work for reasons that go even beyond the financial. So.
Okay.
Now, let's switch gears a little bit to politics. Is there anybody that stands out in this year's presidential campaign so far?
Bernie Sanders, maybe. But I don't have a lot of faith in politicians.
Do you vote?
Yes, I do. But I just am not particularly – I've never felt like the solutions for the people that I care about exist within American politics. I just think that politics where we lost it is remember, America's a capitalist democracy. That means we're driven by money and politics.
Right.
But the problem is now the capitalism drives the democracy. Most of our politicians have been bought out. So corporations over time will have more and more power when it comes to dictating the direction of this country, and it's going to be to our country's detriment. And I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I mean, the American population is getting older. We're falling deeper and deeper into debt. Our politicians are making very bad decisions that are taking care of the elite over everybody else. And I don't see anything that's really going to be able to change that.
Is the economy better when Republicans or Democrats are in the White House?
Well, it depends on what part of the economy you're in, right?
Black people, us, in the hood, in the
majority
ghetto.
of them, yeah.
I don't see much of a difference. I mean, maybe Democrats slightly in some ways, but honestly, there's not a big difference. I mean, that's one of the biggest myths that we have in the world, is that Democrats really take care of black people. They don't.
Right.
They depend on our votes. They need us. But we're kind of like the political whores of the Democratic Party. You think about it, and I use that analogy deliberately because, that a person in that role, the side chick, might be the one where you expect loyalty from her, but you don't expect to give her loyalty back. So every time an election comes up, you'll have some Democratic candidate that will go into black churches and they'll say something like, "These racist Republicans are trying to take your voting rights, and people died in the '60s for you to have the right to vote." Yes, Lord, it be right. And and I'm like, okay, that's fine, but is that all you're fighting for? Our voting rights, so we can go keep getting you into office, so you can do nothing for us? Right. I'm not enthusiastic about that.
Go ahead.
Oh, go, please continue.
I was going to ask you something that Louis Farrakhan said.
The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Absolutely. Yes. Now, when we spoke to him, he said, the main thing that African American and black men should be concentrating on is buying land. And he was like, power comes in land. He said that's one thing that they're not going to make more of, and that's where we have the control, and that's where we have the power, by buying land. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. Well, I love Minister Farrakhan. I got a lot of respect for him.
Thank you for the video you posted about our interview with him too, by the way.
Yeah, man. I thought that was when you guys invited him on, I felt like that was one of the most important interviews I've ever seen in my life. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I saw the minister last Sunday, and
you had dinner at his house?
Yes.
I was supposed to be there.
Yes. Oh, you should really?
I couldn't make it,
you should have came out. He's one of the strongest, most independent black men in America. He's one of the few leaders that I think are worth listening to. A lot of our leaders, unfortunately, are somewhat pretty weak. And what he says about buying land, I agree with. I think that what I like about his economic plan is that it focuses on things other than just begging people to give you jobs and hoping other people will come and help you. he talks about ownership and really just true empowerment. True empowerment comes through the ownership of resources, the control of those resources. So I agree. I think it's a great move. Absolutely.
Now, can we get into 50 Cent a little bit? A lot of people have been talking about him. You know, he's filed for bankruptcy. Some people think he's broke. I think we know better. But then they try to break down his finances. Well, he has these 2 huge lawsuits. You know, he has these things that he has to pay for. He has his mansion in Connecticut. He has this, he has that. Can you maybe perhaps break down for us, from what we know publicly about 50 Cent's situation, is he in some financial trouble?
I think 50 Cent's financial situation, it appears to be complex. Complex meaning that he probably has access to a lot of cash, access to a lot of opportunities that can generate cash. He's got that great show Power. I don't watch it, but my daughter loves it. Yeah, I hear it's really, really good. He's very talented. He's a very smart guy. I am hopeful that he wasn't sucked in too much from the toxic nature of the hip hop lifestyle when it comes to spending money. You know, unfortunately, we have a lot of rappers that just train us to give our money away.
Buy a diamond hat.
Right, a diamond hat, exactly. It really is. I mean, you really can't call it coonery in the sense that that only a fool would take the power from his money and just give it away for no reason. Or for
50's one of the cheapest person I've
he doesn't
met.
seem like he's very.
He's not a spender when it comes to that.
But a lot of people have filed for bankruptcy that have had hundreds of millions of dollars.
I guess the question is, does bankruptcy mean you're broke? Because we've seen Donald Trump file bankruptcy 4 times.
Bankruptcy does not mean you're broke. It's a restructuring. It's an economic incubator. The same way you incubate a baby to protect the baby while the baby's, fragile. Well, sometimes your finances get fragile. You run into what they call a liquidity problem. You have debts to repay, and you can't repay them right then, but maybe you've got money coming in later. So you go to the bankruptcy court and you say, okay, just incubate me, protect me from my creditors, push them back a little bit so I can get this straight, and then we take care of everybody. So the trustee then works with the creditors and says, okay, this person's going to pay you, but they need a couple more months, right? Or they'll pay you half or something like that. So I see a lot of people that file for bankruptcy that are not technically broke, but bankruptcy is not the place to be. Like, that's not something to brag about. Like, you don't want to be bankrupt.
How difficult is it to?
If you look at Donald Trump, I mean, I would want to be bankrupt every day, all day, because he did it 4 times. Yes. He seems like he's okay.
Well, he did do it 4 times, but remember, Donald Trump, from what I've gathered, I don't know all the details of his business strategy, but from what I gathered, he does a good job of kind of protecting his core wealth from his business ventures. So even let's say that a business costs $5 million for him to start, he could probably pull that money out of his pocket, but he's not usually going to do that. He'll go to a bank and get the bank to put up the majority of the money. He'll incorporate that to isolate that business from his core, his core business model, whatever. And then if that particular company doesn't do well, it's quarantined from the rest of his financial situation. So,
say Atlantic City, the Trump hotels out there, that doesn't do well, but that's a whole separate corporation. So if he has to file for bankruptcy because that hotel is in the hole, that has nothing to do with the rest of his.
Yes,
which is genius.
Yes, and that's why financial literacy is so important, especially when we talk about athletes and entertainers. What I see a lot of athletes go broke not because they were doing the wrong things, but because they were trying really hard to do the right thing. So your cousin comes up and says, Dr. Watkins says you should invest your money. So, I'm going to open up this shoe store or this liquor store, whatever, and I need $300,000 to get started. So you say, okay, I got it like that. I'm making $1 million a month. Here's $300,000. It's no big deal. Well, a good financial advisor can help you understand how you can make that same investment, still get involved, but do it in a way that's a little safer, where things are incorporated properly. You let the bank take some of the risk. Risk is not something you should take all yourself. You spread that out a little bit. That way, if it doesn't work out, you're okay. And then maybe you can invest in several more businesses so that when 2 or 3 don't work out, you've got 3 or 4 that are doing well. And so just little things like that I think are extremely important.
Now, when he got sued, this is what I was confused about. Now, he got sued for an alleged video he put out. And I figured that they would sue his website. But so what they did, it seems like, is like they sued his website and then they sued him personally. So how do you protect yourself from something like that? For anybody out there that's trying to open a business, how can they protect themselves from being sued and somebody taking their own property, their own house, their own car, their own savings?
Well, I would say in that particular example that you give.
Well, let's say a regular person. Let's break it down easy. Let's say somebody opens up a restaurant. And they have $100,000 in savings, and they want to protect themselves from that restaurant, that if somebody falls in that restaurant or chokes in that restaurant, that they can't be sued personally and lose their whole life savings because of a business that they created.
Well, they've got insurance for that type of stuff, too. I mean, you can, and assuming that you have business practices that are ethical and safe, a lot of companies will protect you from lawsuits and stuff like that. And in fact, it's funny when you talk about building wealth. That first step is to get that financial security, and then you seek out that prosperity after that, right? Now I'm doing okay. Now I want to get a lot of it, but then you have to protect your wealth. That's that next step. And wealthy people are very good at protecting their money. In fact, when you see families that transfer like billions of dollars generation to generation, they do everything possible to protect their wealth. I mean, their children know the financial advisor as well as they know their own parents sometimes, and that's because you don't want one person's bad decisions to destroy all of that. So I think with 50 Cent, I would presume that he might have tried to put an insurance policy in place or something, because he was doing a lot of risky things with his website. I mean, when you get involved in this, kind of borderline juvenile stuff, like sharing sex tapes of other people. I mean, not disrespecting him, but I don't think he had to really do that. And I think at the very least, when you have those kinds of resources, you got a lot to lose. And one thing my dad used to tell me a long time ago is a person with a lot to lose shouldn't be mixing it up with people who have nothing to lose.
Right. That's true.
You think a lot of that comes from him having too much financial freedom?
It could, or free time.
Yeah, because they say idle mind is the devil's playground, but when you got money, you can really figure out some dumb things to do with your money. Yeah, like go buy a sex tape or embarrass your enemy.
Or some of those pictures, with Mayweather with the money, holding the money as a cell phone and the money stacked up on the bed. I mean, and that's unfortunate because that money could be used for so many amazing things. I mean, I look at Floyd Mayweather's money and I say, oh my God, if I had 1% of that, there's so many things you could do to change so many people's lives with that money. But if you've never been taught any of that, then you don't know. So my hope is that people will realize the scope and the impact of what they can do with that capital. Money is capital, and capital is a type of seed. A seed grows into something bigger. So, but the thing is, if you eat all your seeds, then they'll never grow into fruit. They'll never grow into what they could actually become. Right. And that's what happens when you spend away all your money and you've got millions of dollars. You're literally eating seeds, because that money, that million, could easily be turned into 10, 20, 30 million over a course of time.
Is there any way to protect yourself fully? And this is for everybody out there listening, whether you get in a car accident, because they say insurance covers some, but it only covers up to a certain amount. Or even, I know in some areas they say that if your kid punches another kid, the family can actually sue you if that kid gets injured. Is there any way to possibly make sure that you're good regardless, that they can't take your money? Is that possible? Is there any way to do that?
There are ways to insure almost any type of risk. You can't get everything insured all the time, but
is there a way to hide your money where if they sue you, there's this certain money that they just can't touch?
Well, trust funds can be established for that. Okay. In fact, that was one of the things that I was thinking about in terms of athletes. See, when you talk about athletes going broke, for example, whether it's a lawsuit or just frivolous spending or whatever, right? I thought about it and I said, people think of it in extremes. They think either you have to be a fool with your money or you have to be stingy with your money. I think you can find a nice medium that works. So, for example, let's say you're a young athlete and you're making millions of dollars. Well, first of all, when a 22, 23-year-old gets that kind of money, they're going to make bad choices usually. At least I would have made bad choices.
Right.
So what I would tell a young guy is, look, find somebody that you trust, maybe a mother or a financial advisor or whatever, and set up a trust fund where they have the right to take, say, 10 to 15% of your income every month, almost like a tax or a tithe. You're tithing to yourself, if you want to think of it that way, and have them put it in the trust fund where you can't touch that money until you're 35 or 40. And let the money grow over time. Right. And then even if you blow the other 85%, even if you spend like a complete idiot,
at least
you'll still be set for life. And more importantly, your children will be set for life. You see, a man does not just provide for his children while he's here. He provides for his children after he's gone. Same thing for a good mother. And so, if you're to the point where your children have to beg and hold a car wash to bury you, that really means you didn't do your job.
The car wash.
Seriously. I mean, you see it all the time. People taking up collections to pay for somebody's funeral. And my first thought is, life insurance does not cost that much.
Right.
I talked to my daughter about this yesterday, and I said, babe, I said, if I died, it would probably be very sad for you, but at least you would feel better because you'd probably be rich. You'd have plenty of money because I made sure that I took care of certain things so that you're going to be okay if I'm gone. So those are just little things that people can do, and you don't have to get to the point where you are just a miser with your money. In fact, if I told people to be misers with their money, I would be inauthentic, because that's not how I've ever lived in my entire life.
What about the majority of us who have bills to pay, we're in debt, but we do want to save up some money somehow and invest in a 401k or a Roth IRA, but we have these high interest credit card bills that we have to pay, and we don't have anything extra coming in. We don't have money saved up in case we lose our job and all of that. What do you say to that? Are we still supposed to be trying to invest in that even though we have high interest credit cards to pay out?
Well, paying off a high interest credit card is a good investment because right there you're saving a lot of interest because credit cards charge you a lot of money. So I think that should be part of your strategy. But at the same time, what's really most important is settling that first need, which is security. Just making sure that if something goes wrong, you're going to be okay. So having that emergency fund for the last 3 to 6 months should be a primary objective. Because you want it, because sometimes you can have your debt paid down and be okay financially, maybe have some good investments. But if you don't have access to cash right away, that could put you in a really bad situation. So I think access to cash is very important. High interest credit card debt, obviously not a good thing. A lot of people are getting murdered by student loan debt, which has actually led me to even question whether or not everybody should be aiming for college as their only path to economic success. Now, to more specifically answer your question, if I'm struggling, I'm barely getting by, barely paying bills, I would analyze every single expense that I have every single month and think about something that you could do differently that would allow you to save a little bit, right? Because we tend to find money for the things that we want. If we want to go to the movies, we find the money to go to the movies. Well, a person that saves just $5 or $10 a day will be in a much better financial situation 5-10 years from now than somebody who saves nothing, right? So a lot of times when we say we don't have the money, I kind of look at people and say, well, if you've got a job, you probably have the money somewhere. There are probably things you spend money on that you could cut back on a little bit. So, I would say that that's the first step that you have to do is some serious self-reflection because our society trains us. We have corporations that hypnotize us into believing that we need things that we actually just want. There's a whole art to that. There's a whole market to that. Even also social media. Social media, they work with psychologists to find ways to addict you to Facebook and all that other stuff. Well, corporations find ways to addict you or to get you to engage in what they call impulsive spending, just spending without thinking about it. So you got to be careful about that.
What do you think about 529 plans?
529 plans for education, I think that they're fine. I think that with education, it's funny. This mother said she was sending her daughter to our Black Wealth Boot Camp, and I remember she said, "I want to send my daughter to learn from you instead of going to college." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, because there was this 2-year program that she was going to join, and they wanted like $60,000, $70,000 for this program." And I said, well, how much money is she going to make? And what I found was that the amount of money that she was going to make was not high enough to pay back that kind of debt that she would have to incur. Right. And I think that's where people end up getting flipped upside down. So I think 529 plans are fine. In college is fine for some people. But I think
explain to people what a 529 plan is, because I'm sure some people don't know what a 529 plan is.
Oh, well, basically, I'm not an expert on 529s, but basically it's something that you set up to pay for college. Right. You start saving, and then they set parameters where you can afford to go to whatever school you want to go to, or the money grows over time. And I think some sort of college fund is very, very important. But I think that in the world that we live, we have to really. It doesn't mean you don't go to college, because I went to college, so I wouldn't tell people not to go, because college is a lot of fun too. But
a lot of girls in college.
Yes, yes,
a lot of women.
And yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to tell them myself. But what I'll say though is you have to really reassess it, because the cost of college, I know student loan debt, I think, has quadrupled in the last 10 years.
We know.
Some universities are literally financially raping the public. Because they when you get done, they help you figure out your resume, and then they kind of throw you out to the wolves. And you got students out here that spend $100,000 to go to school that are selling shoes.
But that's why I like 529 plans and stuff like that, because at least you're putting money away, so you'll have the money. So maybe you won't need as much student loans, or maybe none.
I'm gonna tell you this. I'm gonna tell you what I would do if I had a child that was about to go to college. If they said they want to go to college, I would be like, okay, why? And then if they could explain to me why and why college works for their plan, I would say, okay, let's do it. Let's find a school that's affordable. And let's make it happen.
You're right.
But if they told me, let's say they said, look, I want to be like you, Dad. I don't want to work for anybody. I want to work for myself. I would say, okay, what do you want to do? And based on what they wanted to do, I would say, okay, well, you know what? The best university in the history of the world is called Google.com and YouTube.com. You can learn more on the internet than you could at almost any university.
A lot of misinformation out there.
A lot of misinformation, but there's a lot of accurate information.
But he's absolutely right. I thought about this the other day when and I was thinking about, well, what did college do for me? Besides the fun, besides everything else, there's so many classes that you pay for that has absolutely positively nothing to do with my life right now. And I thought about this with my daughter and my son, and I said, instead of saying, what are you going to go to college for? I'm going to ask them, what do you want to do? What do you want to get out of going to college? What is your purpose? Now, if you want to be a lawyer or you want to be a doctor, then yes, you have to go to college because there's certain things you need to do. But if you want to be a businessman or you want to be an investor or you want to work here, you want to work there, you might not have to go into a 4-year school and take all those classes that have nothing to do with what you're trying to do.
But you know, some people don't know what they want to do, and when you go to college, that's where you can find out.
Buys you time.
Because I tell you why college
That's
was
an expensive buy in time.
but college was great. College was great for me because I felt like I always knew I wanted to be a writer. I went to school. I said I'm going to be an English major. I went to Wesleyan. There was no core curriculum, so I didn't have to take a lot of classes that I didn't care about. I took a lot of English and writing classes that I was interested in. And I met a lot of people in college who I actually have done business with outside of school. So it also was a great networking opportunity for me to meet like-minded people that, you know, have been able to help me out with my career. We had a whole alumni association of people that I got internships through, eventually ended up getting jobs from. So I do feel like that is, in a way, a reason for me that college was invaluable for me.
I think college can certainly be valuable for people. I would certainly not run around telling people not to go to college.
No, that's not what I'm saying.
I would just say
it's not absolutely necessary depending on what it is that you want to do, but I do feel like it was valuable.
Oh, absolutely. And it was valuable for me, too. But then also I went to school early 90s where the opportunities that exist today did not exist back then. Also, the economy was different back then. Back then, you know, and before that, you could get jobs with companies and keep the job for 30, 40 years, retire, and be, you know, well off. Now, corporations, the jobs are scarce. The jobs don't pay as much. The jobs don't have as much security. And so I'm a bit, and then also when you're black, you're dealing with racism. I mean, as a black man going into corporate America, I remember applying to, I had a 3.9 grade point average in college. I had a triple major. I mean, I pushed really, really hard in school. I applied for jobs at, I think, 200 Wall Street firms. I got 200 rejection letters. Wow. Right? And so, you know, the experience for me as a black man was difficult.
Right.
I was like, oh, how am I even going to fit into this corporate thing? I need to figure out a way to make my own money on my own terms. And so if someone wants to do that now, all the information you need is right there. I teach a class online. So, and we have the network. We have 457 people in the Black Wealth Bootcamp. So basically, there are 457 other black entrepreneurs that you can work with and network with, many of whom are doing amazing things. And so what I'm saying is that there are a lot of ways to skin that cat. Maybe if the price of college had not skyrocketed the way it did,
it's ridiculous.
Right, it would there'd be a different conclusion.
Right.
But now it's crazy how much money these universities charge.
No, it was crazy then too. But there are also a lot of scholarships and programs and things available, I think, that people don't even know to take advantage of. And I did work all throughout school, so I was at least paying something as I went along.
I don't think people understand the difference between certification and education. Like, they think that they'll go there and get a degree and that's going to guarantee them a 6-figure, 7-figure job. But no, I think education, you know, is what guarantees you a 6-figure, 7-figure job.
Well, you know what's funny, man, is I will say this. There's a difference between going to school and getting educated. Right?
Absolutely.
A lot of people think they're educated because they went to school. But remember, George Bush went to Harvard and Yale. So, I mean, you can go to school and not get an education.
And he reads books upside down, which is an amazing skill because I can't even do that.
Right, me either. But then also there's a difference between education and knowledge. You know, and I think for black people it's very important because for many of us, what we think is an education is actually an indoctrination. You're being taught to think the way your teacher, who becomes your master, actually thinks, right? So sometimes the most dangerous black people in the world can be black people who went to school for a really long time. Because sometimes even worse than being uneducated is to be severely, severely miseducated, right? So I think that when we talk about raising kids in our homes, the first thing I tell parents is you are the one responsible for giving your child a good education. Especially with the internet available, every resource you need is out there. Don't send your child to this public school system, which has repeatedly shown you over and over again that it's going to fail your child. It's more likely to send your child to prison than anywhere else, right? So don't keep going to the system to give your child what they need. You're their parent. You give them what they need. Right. Send them to school, but when they come home, you make sure they get a proper education so they can become assets to your community and not liabilities.
Now let's talk the importance of credit.
Yes.
I don't think a lot of people know how important their credit is in some of making money and borrowing money to do a lot of the things that they want to do. Now, can you talk to people about, I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but how can they fix their credit or how can they maintain good credit?
Maintaining good credit.
Or getting good credit, because a lot of people don't even have credit. They don't even know how they can even establish credit. I mean, even Charlamagne at one time didn't have credit. He didn't have a credit card or nothing. He had to establish credit.
This was years ago, though.
It was 4 years ago, but you were still up
No,
here.
4 years
Yes,
ago.
it was.
No, it wasn't.
Yes, it was.
Listen, I know plenty of people who have never had
Who
never had a bank account, who never had a credit card. I know people now who felt like if I don't have the money, I'm not paying for it. Therefore, I don't have a credit card. Therefore, they don't have any credit at all, which is just as bad as having bad credit.
Right.
When you don't have established credit sometimes.
Credit has a purpose, right? I've seen people survive without credit, or even sometimes with bad credit. I don't recommend that, obviously. But you know, the idea behind the credit score is for the company to know that you're a good lending risk. They're going to loan you money, and you're probably going to pay them back. So they're going to use every indicator they can to figure out if that's going to be the case. So the first thing that they're going to look at, obviously, is how consistently you pay your bills. If you stiffed anybody on debt, stuff like that. That's how they come up with your credit score. Now, at that point, if you're talking about improving your credit score, having a good track record of paying things back on time is important. If you're trying to build credit, borrowing money and then paying it back consistently is a great way to build credit. Credit scores shouldn't be ignored because they can affect your ability to get jobs, right? Or if you start a business.
If you have bad credit, they can not get a job?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
They look at it depends on the company.
Wow.
But a lot of companies will look at your credit score. Now, that's why a lot of black people, that's why our unemployment rate keeps going up. You know, because we keep running into these obstacles.
I didn't know they look at your credit
I didn't know that
score.
either. That's great.
It depends on the company. Jeez. It depends on the company, but they're starting to pretty much try to look at everything they can possibly find to determine what kind of a risk you might be for the company, especially if you work around money.
Jeez.
It's hard enough to fake that urine test.
I know. Right now, you got to give credit to it. Jeez.
Don't fake the urine test. That would be bad.
Now, does it scare you that Donald Trump is being considered as a viable candidate?
No, not really. I mean, I don't have a lot of faith in any of these individuals that are running. I don't have faith in the system. I just think the system's so broken. You know, with Donald Trump, he's entertaining to watch. I don't hate him as much as some of my friends hate him, but I don't love him either. I just watch him. I know he's successful for a reason.
You think he could win?
But does it scare you that people agree with his philosophies?
I think there are people that agree with his philosophies because I think there are a lot of people who are just annoyed and sick. They're just mad at the system. They don't know exactly how to fix it, but maybe they like Trump because he's saying something different. Because, for example, he's one of the few candidates that does not need this government money in order to run. So he's able to kind of deviate from the Republican Party. And I think he brings a type of energy that's necessary to convert politics. He's not
almost honest.
Right.
And everybody's lying to you this time of year.
Right. Exactly.
Especially politicians. It's dream selling season.
Exactly. I like anybody who disrupts the system. I think that's a good thing. I don't get caught up in the Democratic-Republican divide. I don't think, if you look at the Obama presidency, black people as a collective did not do better under Obama than they did under the other presidents. No disrespect to Obama one way or the other, but a politician's not going to save us. But with Donald Trump, he's obviously not the best candidate for black people as a collective. But at the same time, I like the idea of a guy coming from the side, coming from outside the system, and just kind of slamming a battering ram into the establishment a little bit and shaking things up because they have to respond to him.
Can you believe that it's not a lot of candidates talking about police reform?
Well, I mean, it affects mostly people who look like us. And that's why a lot of people don't care a lot about it. But I think Black Lives Matter is doing an amazing job of, again, disrupting. That's the idea. You have to disrupt. If you disrupt and shake things up and just make people uncomfortable, then they're forced to respond to you and acknowledge you. And that's the best thing Black Lives Matter is doing. They're disrupting what's happening across the country, but they're also disrupting what's happening in the black community. There are certain leaders who could not go to Ferguson, who couldn't go to Baltimore and get that respect because people know what's authentic and what's not. And so I think it's going to obviously have to be up to us to keep police brutality at the forefront. We've had 40 years since the war on drugs where police have been taught to believe that they can do anything, disrespect any citizen, mistreat anybody, do whatever they want, and it's okay. Right, because they were kind of in this war with this elusive drug thing, which really wasn't really a war. They were letting the drugs in through the back door and arresting black people in the front door. That's what they were pretty much doing. And what's interesting to me, too, is that I hope that the police brutality conversation goes deeper to really talk about mass incarceration and all these other things. You see, the horrible abuses that happen in prison, the rapes, the murders, the beatings, all these other things, that is what happens after the stop and frisk occurs, after the police brutality occurs. Sandra Bland, she died in jail, so we know her story. But if she had lived in jail, she'd be living a whole different story, and no one would care because nobody cares what happens to these people once they get sent away. And not all these people are bad people. Some of them are good people. Some of them are reformed. Some of them are intelligent. They
made mistakes.
Right, and they put them away for 50, 60 years and act like it's not a big deal. Right. And it's not. It's just not good for. It's not good for them, of course, but it's also not good for their families. It's not good for our country. So we have to look at the holistic aspect of the police brutality problem, not just the guy who gets caught on videotape beating a citizen when he's trying to arrest him. I mean, that's the first step in a 10, 20-step process.
Did you hear the LAPD say the Straight Outta Compton movie fuels hate and jeopardizes the police's safety?
Well, you know what? To make it simple, they started it.
Exactly.
It's all factual. This is what happened. Rodney King really happened. The riots really happened.
Mm-hmm. F the Police came out and
as a response.
And I think that people had problems with F the Police because they were not used to black men standing up for themselves and fighting back. Mm-hmm. And I endorsed that song entirely. I loved what they were saying when they said it. Rodney King confirmed it. Everything that's happened since then has further accelerated the validation of what they've been talking about, and many of us were suffering in silence. And I think the story of South Central is so powerful to me because that's really where all this craziness started. I mean, that was, I don't know exactly why it was South Central, but think about this. I mean, the whole drugs and gang thing and the violence thing where suddenly you've got 7th graders running around with AK-47s, as Ice Cube's son said, made in Russia. He didn't even got a passport, right? Mm-hmm. This community changed overnight. It was destroyed overnight. These children, they had post-traumatic stress disorder. You're not supposed to be in the 8th grade and have 3 friends that have been murdered. That's insane. Mm-hmm. I think that NWA really was, even again, as much as I might critique what they did to hip-hop, I don't think that NWA had a positive effect on hip-hop in the long term. I feel like a lot of the artists today are grandchildren of NWA. But at the same time, they were you're 17 years old, you're reflecting in a frustrated young black man kind of way to the hell that you're dealing with. And I can't imagine them responding any other way.
We appreciate you joining us as always.
Dr. Boyce, give me your info, man. Tell me where they can find you, reach out to you and all that good stuff.
Well, I teach online at theblackwealthbootcamp.com and yourblackworld.net. I write a lot of stuff there, and financialjuneteenth.com. So those are a couple sites that people can use to catch up with me.
All right. It's Dr. Boyce Watkins. It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.